So would you discriminate against somebody who changed genders if they wanted to serve as a judge? No, no, that's bigotry. People have the right to choose how to live their lives. Cruz asked a series of absurd questions. I hope he didn't learn them from me. He was my student. Where he said, well, if a man has the right to choose to be a woman, do I, as a Latino person, have the right to be Asian? No, you don't. You can't change into somebody who's Asian. You can marry somebody who's Asian and live an Asian life and be part of Asian culture, but no, you can't. You can't do that. You can convert. You can be born a Jew and become a Catholic. You can be born a Catholic and become a Jew. There's certain things you can change. Certain things you can't. We used to think that gender was one of them. It turns out it's not. It turns out you can change gender and you can live a perfectly happy and good life. We have two friends who have grandchildren who have changed genders. And in both cases, they're living much, much, much happier lives with the gender change than they were.
Good morning, people. It's morning, as it will be for the next 59 minutes. Let me get centered. I don't like this. Hold on. There we go. For those who don't know what that thing is right behind me there, that's a Shorty Social Good Award, which I won back in 2019. I don't know. I'll never win another one. It was for YouTube channels that, contributed to greater social good. But I have a sneaking suspicion, politics being what it is, even though I think it, it might be even more applicable to what we're doing these days, probably will never happen again. But we'll see. We'll see. How is the auto? Am I blowing this out again? We're going to have a good show today. But as always, I've got to do something of the intro discussion. Let people trickle in. If you have not shared this link around, share it around because it's going to be wildly interesting. Keith Wilson, who is the attorney for a number of people in the Ottawa protest, who's representing Brian Peckford in his federal challenge to those restrictions, the vaccine mandate restrictions. But let's just actually dissect a little bit Dershowitz and what he said there. First of all, you can see why Dershowitz is, I say was because he's no longer teaching probably, but he's dynamic, he's passionate, he's excited and, energized in what he's saying. Delivery is different than substance, however. And I was watching that, and when you watch it and you dissect it and you look at it analytically and you say, here are the logical mistakes he's making, here are some of the, I won't say rhetorical, but tactical, I'll call it Scott Adams loser think strategy that he's doing. You can then see where Alan goes wrong in his thought process here and where he goes wrong in the ad hominem attack on Ted Cruz. First of all, there's an element of what Dershowitz is saying, which is just tautological. It's a vicious circle. We thought you could not change genders. It turns out you can. We'll swap the word gender for race and then tell me why, though he may think that's not true today, why it may not be equally true in 5 years. We thought you could not change races, but it turns out you can. Because if it's based on a belief and not a biology, well, you can always change beliefs. I mean, just ask Dolezal, the woman who identified, born Caucasian, identified as black, and did a lot of things to actually make it such that she was, one would not have known by looking at her. The ad hominem attack, which is on the one hand self-praise because he used to be a teacher at Harvard, I believe, and he taught Ted Cruz. And then the ad hominem, I hope I didn't teach him how to ask questions like that, which presupposes that the question was bad in the first place to lay the groundwork for the criticism of the question itself on the substance. He says, my 2 cents, it was in the tweet. He, like many others, are confounding gender and sex. One is biology, the other is belief. And he's right. You could do whatever you want, make whatever choices you want, and you should not be discriminated against for them. Discriminated unless there are criteria for which your decision could procure you an unfair advantage in certain circumstances. You may want to live like a a bodybuilder, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be able to lift massive amounts of weights. On the flip side, you may want to be a bus driver, but if you have certain physical attributes that don't allow you to do that, it's not discrimination at that point. It's something else. But confounding gender and sex, one is biology, one is belief, but people have used them so interchangeably for such a long time that people think they're the same thing. What gender are you? People have often and typically take to mean, what's your sex? When you look more into the term, there is a distinction between gender and sex. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a different word for what is, in theory, identical things. Gender typically does refer to sex, male or female or whatever. But the nuance is that gender is distinguished from sex in that it talks about the attributes that are generally associated, either culturally, socially, or whatever, with the sexes. So there's that element of culture, society, semantics, and tradition in gender, the concept of gender, which there isn't in sex as a biological term. And so then in confounding those two and in treating them effectively synonymously, like he does in his 1 minute thing, basically says, well, you can change beliefs, and I've presumed now sex is gender and therefore a belief, but race is not. And then I equate or distinguish race from religion because religion is a belief. You can always change it. Race is not. You cannot change it. We thought gender could not be changed, but now it can. So in a way, it's arguing from certain conclusions in a circular manner while confounding the definitions and the nuance between the two terms. And as attorneys, my father always said, words are the tools of our trade, and they have meanings, they have purpose. And when you don't respect the meanings or the purpose of words, well, on the one hand, it's how lawyers twist arguments, but on the other hand, it's how they lose arguments. And then the anecdotal story at the end, that's all fine and well. When you argue from anecdotes, rest assured there will be just as many people out there with anecdotes that prove the exact contrary. You do not argue from anecdotes. They're nice. They're nice for understanding someone's life experience, someone's lived experience, but they don't win an argument. They don't prove an argument, because as many anecdotes as Alan Dershowitz might have that support his foregone conclusion, there will be other people out there, and you know what they're going to say. They're going to have anecdotes to the exact opposite. And then you have competing anecdotes. Where do you go from there? Okay, that is it. Standard intro disclaimers. Super chats, you all know the rules. YouTube takes 30%. If you don't like that, we're simultaneously streaming on Rumble. Rumble has the equivalent. Rumble rants, they take 20%. So better for the creator, better to support a platform that you like. What else? No medical advice, no legal advice, no election fortification advice. Although today we have an attorney who is representing some, at least as far as Canadian politics, Canadian law goes, some of the biggest, most pressing legal questions from some of the most relevant, legally speaking, issues going on right now. The truckers, not all of them, but a number of the people involved in the protest, the convoy. Brian Peckford, the last living signatory to drafting the 1982 Charter of Rights, which Justin Trudeau has desecrated. Which desecration, oh, look at that, we're demonetized already. Which desecration has been duly noted by the European Parliament and the members of European Parliament, who, at least 4 of whom, lambasted, Lisa Lampanelli roasted Justin Trudeau in the political sense on the international scale, on the international scene. So that is that.